Right, thank you very much. And we're going to go straight into our second power talk. It's my pleasure to introduce Nathan Hall, who is the Educational Technology and Pedagogy Coordinator for Douglas College in New Westminster, British Columbia, Canada. He's burning the midnight oil for us all the way over there. What time is it there, Nathan?
1:48 in the morning.
There we go. So it just goes to prove that EdTech truly is global and spans the world. So without further ado, so you can go and get some much needed rest, I'm sure. Over to Nathan.
Thanks so much. Yes, I'm a little bit groggy, but we'll do my best at what we can do here. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Flipgrid, and I know that some of you already are familiar with it. I'm going to make a little bit of an assumption that there are some people who don't know what Flipgrid is. I also wanted to mention, just before we get started too far, that there is a website listed at the bottom of this slide. It's flipgrid.nathanghall.ca. So if you grab a pen and you write that down, if you miss anything or if I have to skip ahead or anything like that, it has all of the slides and a summary of each slide and what I wanted to talk about. And for that, you can find that on my website. So yes, without further ado, let's continue. So first off, what is Flipgrid and who am I? Well, I am the Educational Technology and Pedagogy Coordinator for Douglas College, but I also have taught in different situations. I've taught in different places around the world. I've taught at private language schools. I've taught in English for academic purposes. So this particular tool that we're talking about can be used in basically any circumstance. So what is Flipgrid? Well, Flipgrid is a cloud-based software, if you want to call it that, where you have an app for your mobile device or you have it on your computer, and students can post videos, record videos of themselves, and you can provide video feedback to them. It's a very quick and easy way to do video responses asynchronously with students. It is a fantastic tool. It used to be paid for. It's now free from Microsoft after they bought Flipgrid. And they have done a lot of really good things with Flipgrid to enhance it, to make it even better. So let's continue on, starting with formative feedback. So I decided to focus on the idea of giving feedback, especially formative feedback using Flipgrid, instead of talking about the student end. I've been to a lot of panels and discussions and things about Flipgrid where they talk about how the students can use it, that type of thing. I wanted to focus in on the role of the instructor and what the instructor can do to provide good formative feedback. Now, I'm not going to be talking about assessment here in the sense of something like providing some sort of summative assessment. I wanted to focus in on these two terms, formative feedback. Let's break it down. So form. So when we talk about form, we talk about this idea of putting something together. So like the verb to form, it's a process where you take information from different areas, if you're forming an opinion, and you're putting them all together and forming an opinion based on the different information that you have. Forming something like is to give shape or to give form to something, and formative feedback helps to students to form their own ideas and their own learning through the feedback of the teacher and also their former knowledge. The feed part makes me think of something where you're eating, this idea that there's something that is nutritious, maybe even a little bit delicious, and it helps you to develop good bones and muscles and anything else that helps us to live. And that's the same thing when it comes to feedback, this idea that it should feed someone. And from that, there should be good growth in your learning. And so I wanted to focus quite a bit on that feed part of feedback when it comes to, we're talking about Flipgrid. And then back, this idea that it's coming back. Something was given, and it's our responsibility as instructors to nurture that and to take care of that before we return it back to the students. So the students give us something, and we should honor it in that way, and we should respect it in that way by taking the time before we give it back to them, something that we give back that will nourish them, feed them, and form them into the better learner and the way that we want them to be able to learn. So that is how I see formative feedback. So when we talk about Flipgrid, there are three main areas in which you can provide feedback. All of them are in the same area. So when a student records a video, say they record a video of themselves talking about the the topic that we give them. By the way, in Flipgrid, the grid part is your class, and the topic is the question that you give them. So I'll refer to topic quite a bit. So once a student responds to the topic by doing a video recording of themselves, you will provide feedback through either a recording, that could be video or audio, a comment, which is a written text form, or use of a rubric, or a combination of 2 or 3 of those. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, are these 3 elements, how they can be used together to provide good formative feedback. So first off, the recording part of it. When we talk about recording, this is the biggest part of Flipgrid, that we can record ourselves talking to the students and provide them with asynchronous feedback. So think of it more like a discussion that we're having with a student. They can provide one half of the discussion, and then we're providing the other half of the discussion through our video response to them. This is the powerful part of Flipgrid. This is what makes it such a powerful tool. Is I remember in the past there was this asynchronous discussion tool that was put out by University of Michigan, and it was called Clear. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Clear had a number of different tools, and one of them was this asynchronous discussion tool where you could post a question, and then what would happen is when the student watched it, as soon as it stopped watching it, their webcam would come on and their microphone would come on, and they'd be able to respond to that question, and that recording would then be saved, and then you would watch and you would record and you could have this ongoing asynchronous discussion with them. And it was a really powerful tool, but it was flash-based. It didn't work very well with mobile devices. It was very intensive for the students, and so it didn't work very well. Flipgrid, to me, is the much more mobile-friendly 21st century version of that. And so that's what we want to talk about when we talk about the recording part. So in the recording, you can either use your camera, so that could be on your mobile device or on your webcam. And with that, of course, you can provide good visual feedback for them. And by doing this, you're building a connection with the students so they can see you and they could respond to you much like they would face to face. So they're watching, just like we were watching in the previous session where we were talking about using a video to be able to see what the body language is, to pick up all those different clues. And so with doing a video, you're providing more than just the words. You're providing the emotion, the expression, and the students can pick up from that. And it's been noted in research that that is a very powerful way to be able to provide feedback to students. You can also use a whiteboard or blackboard, and the whiteboard part is a really handy function. It works very much like you would just like in a whiteboard in a classroom where you can write on it. And you can either prepare something ahead of time just like you would before a class, and then as the students come in, they'll see it, or you can provide it as you're recording. So just like you would in a class where you live record something and talk about it, it's the same way, except this is, of course, asynchronous. There's also text overlay. Text overlay is a fantastic tool. For me, who I'm not very good with the whiteboard with writing text. It looks messy, and sometimes students ask me to redo stuff. This is great because you can type it and it's very nice and clear. And so you can actually use the whiteboard to be able to have nice, clear text overlaid over your video or over the whiteboard section. Very powerful little tool, and you can use colors to kind of highlight things as well too. One of the things that also is quite powerful is the ability to upload a photo. Now I've put a twist on that. I like to use screenshots to be able to do that. So I'll take either a screenshot or even a picture from the book or something to highlight something that I wanted to provide them feedback on. Let's say I watched their video and there's a particular element that I wanted to talk about, maybe it's sentence fragments in this case. And so I wanted to focus on how we talked about in class. Maybe this is something we had already been talking about in class, and now I wanted to bring it back up just so I could highlight a few things so I can refresh their memory about that area and maybe help them direct them back to what we had talked about before. So photo overlays are great for that. And again, I use the whiteboard for that function as well. Now stickers are a little interesting because most of them are emojis, emoticons, and so they're nice, fun little elements. They are great for that type of tool, but they also use a lot of things like arrows and stuff to be able to highlight specific areas where maybe they've done really well, but also areas in which I want to highlight that they need work on. And so you can combine it together with either the text or the photo overlay together with the stickers to be able to get that, accomplish that. Drawing, you can use a drawing tool to be able to draw just like you would on the whiteboard. So once you have text up there, you can highlight things and do things. And like I said, if you do it while you're recording the video, then you will actually see it in real time. So you'll see the text, and then as you talk, you can then underline and they'll be able to see it. Thankfully, Flipgrid does a very good job with that. Although I have found a really nice thing is to use my stylus on my tablet to be able to do the recording when I do that. And lastly, they've introduced screen recordings. Screen recordings are a really powerful tool, especially if you've already done some stuff, like you want to show part of the textbook and you have it either scanned or available as e-text, and you can then show it on the screen, or you can pull up a website, especially if there's one where you want them to do some work to continue on. You can also upload a video, which can be a great tool for comparison. So you can take a student's pre-recorded area from maybe a month ago, and now you can upload it and compare to what they have now to show how their growth has happened. Because students really struggle with this, especially at certain levels. They think they've plateaued and they haven't moved. This allows for that comparison. So then you have the rubrics, and the rubrics have a title, which has 32 characters, a description 120 characters, and the scores. And I use the rubric to kind of show a pathway. And I tell the students, this isn't a completion, this is where we are on the journey. So we haven't reached the end of our journey, but here's where you are. This is what city we're at right now. So that allows them to be able to see by a score. And then in the description part, I make sure I'm very clear about the different sections along the way which they're at. And lastly, of course, is the comment tool, which allows for a fairly good chunk of text, but no other rich text or anything. To me, that's my summary area and the goal setting for the students for the next part. So that's basically what I wanted to cover today. I know I went through it rather quickly, 15 minutes, so I wanted to make sure that I cover that fairly quickly. If you do have questions, I do want to just mention that you can also use the hashtag Flipgrid questions. I set that up just so you can post some questions, and I'll try and answer those once I get some sleep tonight. And then I'll get back to you later on about that. But you can also, again, like I said, make sure that you also check out flipgrid.nathanghall.ca, the CA being Canada, allowing you to be able to then find my slides and my summaries. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much for that smorgasbord of ideas, Nathan. And there's a lot of thanks in the chat for you for staying up so late and doing the early morning presentation. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so on to our next Power Talk now. I'd like to introduce Dr. Irini Papakamenu, who is an ESL teacher and owner of the Centre of Foreign Languages and Research